So hi everybody, thank you so much for coming to our talk. And we also wanted to thank the organizers so much for inviting us to speak to you today. As we were introduced, my name is Diane Fenton. I'm a director of data science with RBC, and I've been with the bank for about 6 years.
I'm Joel. I'm also director of data science, and I've been at the bank for 7 years.
So today, our slides are going. We lost the slides. So today, we would like to talk to you about building unique client experiences at RBC through data and AI insights. And so we'll start by giving you a 30,000-foot overview of tech at RBC, as well as the Calgary Innovation Hub, which we're both part of, and some of our data strategy. And then we'll get a little bit more specific with some of the stuff that we're working on. So some of our data services, the event engine and the mortgage application tracker. And then we'll talk about some applications of data science in the work that we do. And that's the intelligent event to activity mapper, which is part of PATH, and a more in-depth example of the intelligent email management product. So RBC is one of Canada's largest banks, and indeed it's amongst the biggest in the world in terms of market capitalization. We have almost 100,000 employees, and more than 10% of these are tech employees. So you may be surprised to learn that a bank has such a large tech employee population. And that's because RBC really believes that tech is key to unlocking business value across the enterprise. We have technologists who do things from cybersecurity, AI and machine learning, app development, and much, much more. And these people work in all of the lines of business across the bank to solve business problems and provide business value. And you can see that really RBC's commitment and their belief in this strategy, this data-driven strategy, in the $4 billion that the bank invests annually in technology. RBC really is a great place to be a technologist, and the people there are not only running the bank, but transforming the bank.
My turn. So, like Diane mentioned, we're both part of the Calgary Innovation Hub. RBC has multiple innovation hubs across the country, also in Halifax and Montreal. But the Calgary Hub is the newest hub. Just opened more than just over a year and a half ago in September of 2021. And we actually just passed 150 employees. So the hub is growing very quickly and continuing to grow. And actually RBC believes specifically that Calgary has a great tech ecosystem, and that the partnerships are here to really build our tech footprint. And actually, I'm also a born and raised Calgarian. I guess that wasn't in my bio, but I'm very happy to be back home in Calgary. So why build regional innovation hubs? Simply, RBC thinks that it makes sense to align our tech talent across the country. Traditionally, there's lots of tech footprint in the head office in Toronto, but the creation of the innovation hubs is really to align talent with all of Canada. Like I mentioned, not only Calgary, but across the country, there are good technologists. And in addition to being good for business, that RBC thinks it's good for the country, for our clients, and Canada in general to have good tech jobs across the country. Specifically, and I can speak from experience having moved back to the hub a few months ago, one of the opportunities with regional hubs is to build a different kind of relationship between the business and technology, where if you're a technologist in Toronto, you definitely don't have the same kind of relationship with, say, someone out in the field in a branch in Calgary. Whereas now with the Innovation Hub, actually our space right now is co-located in Bankers Hall with the kind of regional banking office, and we can build relationships, specifically focused on innovation to try to find new opportunities. I think that's a big part of data science is Diane said, changing the bank or transforming the bank. So it's a great opportunity, to connect with regional partners in a way that hasn't been done before. Okay, so we have many tech positions within the RBC Calgary Innovation Hub. I want to talk a little bit about the work. We do have teams. They're all within the hub. They're all technologists, but across multiple teams within technology. So including but not limited to the actual infrastructure that our technology solutions run on top of, cybersecurity, digital, so that would include things like online banking and mobile application, as well as Diane and I are part of the data and analytics enterprise department around data. So within all of those teams, we have basically the whole gamut of tech roles. I won't read the whole slide for you, but we're both data scientists. We have data engineers, DevOps people, designers, probably anything you can think of, even if it's not depicted there. We probably have someone with those skills as well. Okay, so zooming one level deeper, I mentioned we're both part of data analytics, and I think that a big differentiator for RBC, in addition to a focus on tech, is specifically a focus on data and our data platform strategy. And this really sort of shows up in a lot of the work in our department. You can see that there's three pillars. The first is to evolve our data foundation to support many business workload patterns on a minimum number of technology environments. And that really reflects two, I think, truths about maybe tech in general. One is that you have a variety of applications and workloads, whether it's operational systems like ATMs, online banking, back office systems, managing loans and deposits, you could go on and on, or analytical workloads, some of which we'll be talking about, where we might reuse data from an operational context to provide a good client experience, personalize the client experience, increase operational efficiency. But there's a wide variety of workloads. There's also a wide variety of technology. Every year there's a new latest and greatest, whether it's operational or analytical, machine learning. Actually, Diane will briefly mention large language models later. That's pretty big news. But tech's changing. So this first pillar is really about handling that variety, and that part of the strategy is to find standards and reusable solutions, so that we're not always reinventing the wheel, and that we can focus on solving business problems rather than kind of a big wide variety of technology in use. Actually, I want to say one more thing on that first pillar, how that's reflected, for example, in data and analytics is, within our department, is manage the enterprise data warehouse environment that sits on top of Teradata. And actually, that's probably the biggest footprint within our department. Has been there for more than 2 decades. That's still very heavily used, and there's lots of value in it. It drives workloads like traditional reporting and business intelligence, things like that. We also have a enterprise data lake environment running on Hadoop that's used for workloads like ad hoc analytics, data science, big data transformation, etc. And here's where I'll kind of move over to the second pillar. A big part of our tech platform is focused on supporting analytics engines and data services. And that's where most of our work lines up, and specifically data services that are reusable. In an organization as big as ours, there are lots of opportunities to build something once and then reuse it in many contexts, whether that's data or an analytical capability, or maybe just a general business API. So we'll be probably elaborating, actually really the rest of the talk, we'll be elaborating on some examples of data services. And then finally, the third one, of course, sometimes there will be business needs that need a very specific solution. And the third pillar is recognizing that kind of work through projects or data squads if there's a specific need for specific data or a specific application or use case. Okay, so the first example we want to talk about is the event engine. So this is one of the reusable data services. What it does is it captures and streams event data in real time. And traditionally, in a lot of organizations, data processing could be done in batch. And for example, monthly or weekly or daily or intraday. And that works for a lot of use cases, but definitely if you want to do sort of the most possible, either in terms of personalizing client interactions and providing the right message at the right time, or understanding sort of an entire picture of events going on in the business, real-time is really a added value. So what the Event Engine does is it's a platform that can be connected to any source system. Again, say online banking, transactions, etc. And they publish these events in a standard format to the Event Engine so that they're providing a centralized view of all the interactions across the bank in real time. That lets you, I already mentioned, kind of deliver real-time customer experiences or even employee experiences. Actually, the example we're going to give is sort of helping employees, which also helps customers. As well as if you have a picture of the whole, either a business process, front to back, kind of across all systems, or a client journey, end to end. Say you're applying for a mortgage, all the way from starting the application, filling out the application, submitting it going through adjudication, and then finally the mortgage being funded. You can have a picture of that whole process. And then once you have that, then you can do analytics and drive insight, things like that. So the Event Engine, in some sense, is the core of a lot of what we'll talk about. So this is the first example of an application built on top of the Event Engine that we're going to talk about, which is the Mortgage Application Tracker. This is a mobile app that RBC mortgage specialists can use on their RBC enabled mobile device. And what it lets them do is understand the status of all the mortgage applications kind of in their book, as well as information about the applications, contact information. As well, it has updates in real time. So if there's an update, they can both pull or look up information, or if, for example, the mortgage gets funded, an event can be published and then sent as a push notification to the app. And the real value or the opportunity here was before this, if a mortgage specialist wanted to understand something about the application, look something up, they had to log in on their laptop. So this allows it to be right in their pocket. If they're walking between meetings, if they're on the go, it's really a big benefit for mortgage specialists. And the way it works, it says it on the slide, but the way it works is that the Event Engine receives events from the back-end mortgage application systems and makes them reusable, so that this is another application built on top of that that can just access those events in real time. And the outcome is really a better experience for the mortgage specialist. They can spend more time on value-added activities like interacting with clients rather than opening up their laptop to find new information, and that gets a better client experience. Actually, the last thing I want to mention about this, I love starting with this one because it's a very simple example, but I want to emphasize the value sometimes is just in making the data available. Before we talk about analytics, machine learning, fancier things, if you want to put it that way, there's real value in just making data available and reusable in different contexts. The next reusable data service is Path, and this is something built on top of the Event Engine. So the Event Engine, we have multiple millions of events per day, whether it's interactions on the website, transactions, status changes in applications, but over time, that means we have billions of data points in the Event Engine. And what Path does is allows us to stitch those together to understand, for example, a client journey or end-to-end business process, and then draw insights from it. The way it works, it has three parts: process capture, process mining, and process insights. Process capture is at a high level having standardized process documentation. So a lot of this knowledge right now is in the heads of business subject matter experts, but this offers a standard place to capture especially the ideal version of a process. How ought the process to work, or what's our understanding of the process. And that really motivates the second point of process mining, because often, the ideal understanding of a process is not actually what obtains in the real world. It's probably a truism, and that data's messy. Probably everyone has been talking about that. And it's true, if you look at the data, you probably don't necessarily see what you might expect from understanding of the business process. So the process mining offers a data-driven approach to understanding really what do we see in the events and what's going on in a client journey or a business process. And from the first two parts, once you have process capture and process mining and an understanding of really sort of the state of the business, what's going on in the events, then you can do process insights and try to understand things like exploratory data analysis, simply exploring the data, but ultimately, take actions, for example, to improve a process or to improve client experience. You can run what-if scenarios and maybe motivate testing, changes to a business process. So Path is a platform that enables all of those capabilities. And actually, we're going to drill into the second point on process mining with a data science solution, which is the Intelligent Event to Activity Mapper. What this is, from a high level, is going from raw events data to business activities. And the reason is because the raw events, as they're reflected in the event engine, might not carry business meaning for a business subject matter expert, right? They're kind of at a technical level and not at a business interpretable level. So to kind of do the third point on the previous slide of actually drawing insights, this is almost true of any data. You need to turn the data into information or something that you can interpret. And to do that, we need to go from raw events to business activities. The reason that this is, we'll talk about the ML in a second, but the reason that this is an ML solution is simply one of scale. We have more than 300, I'm not sure the exact number, sort of specific business processes just within Canadian banking operations. So there's hundreds of these. And you could do this process I'm describing manual, just with subject matter expertise and kind of going through the data and doing manual analysis. But the ML solution that I'm going to talk about really makes it feasible to do that much more quickly, and maybe with allowing business subject matter experts to focus on value-added activities. So how it works is, from the raw events, we do have indication of which business process the raw events are related to. That's part of what we capture in the event engine. So we can filter to get common events related to one business process. And then the next step is where machine learning comes in. We use machine learning to do clustering and to infer, the assumption is that these events are associated with latent business activities. So that's done with machine learning to create kind of a proposed clustering. And then the final step is where we do a person with subject matter expertise does post-processing to validate that, because you really need, if you want to use this for insight analytics, you need this to be correct. So the final step is some post-processing, which I'll talk about next. So this is one example from a mortgage application. What's depicted on the slide is the output of the second step, so of the machine learning clustering. In the columns are the different steps, and then the items in the columns are the raw events that the machine learning has clustered into associated business activities. So what the subject matter expert would have to do after this would be exactly to name the clusters. Right now it just says step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. As well as to potentially split the cluster if there are too many events that are really part of different activities, or to combine clusters if they're part of the same activity. And once that's been done, then you can kind of move to the third step of insight. And so these are both two screenshots from the Path platform that could be used by a business analyst or some kind of subject matter expert, not necessarily a data scientist, right? A data scientist or someone else, someone more technical could also access the data directly. But that this layer of insights also enables other kinds of users. And this is really just the first level. I mentioned when it comes to insights, I think the first level is exploratory data analysis and just understanding the data. Anytime you do data science, I think you have to understand, explore the data first before doing anything more sophisticated, for lack of a better word. So what's depicted here, you can see it's sort of the same kind of chart. They're both charts of cycle time on the left is a whole process end to end, and then on the right is particular steps of that process. And actually, maybe I really want to emphasize, in some way, this is a very simple idea, but that to get to this point, we needed to do exactly what happened before. of data preparation to make this really meaningful. The data needs to be prepared correctly so that it reflects the context that it's referring to. So that this could be the first step, for example, in understanding what's a process bottleneck that could be improved. Don't have any slides on it, but like I said, sort of the next step would be something like what-if analysis, or some more like causal inference to understand what would happen if we changed a particular step, how would the business process change. I think that might be the last thing I'll present. So I'll hand it over to Diane to talk about one of our other reusable data solutions.
Thank you. So Joel has just described the process of, process mining, of understanding a business process. Why do we want to understand a business process? Well, probably for a lot of reasons, but a really important one is to improve that process, to make it better for the users and for our clients. So that's what I'd like to talk to you about right now, is a specific instance of a data solution called intelligent email management. So what is IEM? The Intelligent Email Management Tool is a product that uses natural language processing to improve operational efficiency for email inboxes. So, as you might imagine, at the bank, we have a lot of email inboxes. So, for example, you could imagine an email inbox with the goal of, so if you're a client, you could email this email inbox. And there's lots of reasons that you might need to email them. You could be looking for information, or you could want to know the answer to a question, or you might want to make a request or change to your account. And that email inbox would be really high volume. There'd be a ton of emails coming into that email inbox because RBC has a lot of clients. So it's not feasible for one person to answer all of these emails. Instead, it's a team of employees who answer an email inbox. And you can also imagine that these email inboxes might not be limited to just clients, but could also, the requests and questions and stuff could come from other RBC employees who are, for example, branch advisors who are trying to help their clients. So these are the types of email inboxes that the IAM product is trying to target. In addition, we want these emails to have the information inside of their body as opposed to attachments. And the goal for an engagement where we work with one of these email inboxes is to improve the efficiency of the process as well as to reduce costs. And so in our experience, we found that there are two sort of main buckets of costs that these email inboxes experience. So the first is the cost of the SLA. Now, SLA stands for Service Level Agreement, and basically what it is the contract between the email inbox team and you, telling you how long it's going to take, in what period of time they commit to answering your email. So for example, if an email inbox has an SLA of 24 hours, that means that within 24 hours of sending the email to them, you should expect a reply. And you can imagine that exceeding this SLA, so taking longer to answer the email, is costly in certain cases. For example, if you were to email and say, well, I think there's been fraud on my account, and I take 5 days to send you a reply, well, that's 5 days that the person doing fraud on your account could continue doing fraud on your account. And so that's, the bank would owe you money in that case. And that's an example of how exceeding the SLA could run up costs for an email inbox. The second main category of costs that we see are the cost of the people who work at answering the emails, so the full-time employees, and their salaries. And so you can imagine that if you send an email, you'd like a human to answer you, to understand your email and send you a response. But there's other operations or tasks associated with an email inbox like this that don't necessarily require a human to do. For example, you could imagine that somebody is taking the role of a queue manager who reads the emails coming in, makes sure that something needs to be done for these emails, and then routes them to an employee of the email inbox to answer it for you. And so we want to make sure that the people working on this email inbox are doing things that really do require a human, and not tasks that where humans aren't the best solution for it. And I'll note that these two costs are intertwined in that you could decrease one at the expense of another. So for example, you could really save salary costs for your email inbox if you only had one person working there, but then it would take 20 days to get an answer to your email, right? So we're not looking to just drive one of them down, we're looking to reduce total costs. So to this end, we've developed a number of different capabilities for the IAM product that will help us improve the process of getting an email. So the first thing that happens when an email comes into the email inbox is that it needs to be authenticated. The sender needs to be authenticated. And that's because I can't just email the bank and say, can you make a wire transfer from this random account, right? You want to ensure that the person asking me to carry out a wire transfer is somebody that really has the permissions to be doing that for that account. So this is something that could be done by a human, right? The human could look at the sender, look at the verified email address, check it against a list to make sure that that person is really authorized for that account that they're requesting information or transaction for. But this doesn't necessarily need to be done by a human. So IEM's authentication capability provides a way to automatically authenticate the client's identity so that we know that the person is okay to be asking for what they're asking for. So the next thing that we want to happen with an incoming email is that it should go to somebody who knows how to answer it. So if I'm an expert on credit cards, then if an email comes into our queue manager, so this could be somebody reading the email saying, okay, I think this is about credit cards, I will send it to the credit card expert on our team. But this doesn't necessarily need to be done by a human. So our skill-based routing capability is looking to use NLP to understand the content and the intent of the email to forward it to the right person for action. Now, not all of the emails that we receive necessarily require a response or an action. So examples of emails that wouldn't would be out-of-office replies or automatically send receipts of acknowledgement, so yes, we've received your email, or the Canadian classic, thank you so much for your help. And so these types of emails don't necessarily require, they don't require an action from the agent. So once again, the queue manager could read that and determine that, but it's not necessary for the queue manager to do it. So we have a capability which can identify these emails that don't require a response and deprioritize them. So to not put them in the main working queue, put them in a separate queue where somebody can check them afterwards and deal with them sort of in batch. Similar to deprioritizing emails, there's also emails that we receive that we want to prioritize. So things like fraud, for example, are time sensitive. They need to be actioned in a high priority manner. And so we can classify and prioritize the emails coming in, again, using NLP and machine learning to identify the ones that really need to be answered promptly and move them into a high priority queue. Now, when you send an email to an email inbox such as this, it's not necessarily just, you send them an email and it's over. Oftentimes, it's a back and forth conversation. So I might send an email to the email inbox, and then they might tell me that they require more information from me, so they send something back to me, and then I'll send them the information they asked for, and then they action the request and send it back to me, right? So it's not just sort of one email, it's more of a conversation. And for client experience, as well as to not waste the people working on these requests' time, it makes sense for all of the correspondence with in one request to go to the same person. So I shouldn't be talking to 5 different people over the course of my request. It should really be a conversation with the same person. So the queue management auto routing will determine that an email is a follow-up to a conversation that's already been happening and send it automatically to the same person, the same agent actioning the request to improve the client experience. And now finally, so I'm sure everybody's heard the hype about large language models recently. And the reason that they're so cool is because they really act like they understand human language. You can talk to it and it looks like it understands English. And if you have experience with natural language processing, you might know that getting the computer to understand English is one of the most difficult tasks and one of the most crucial tasks. So we're looking to use these large language models to improve our understanding of the emails so that we can do the previous 5 capabilities better. And this is a work in progress. So there are a couple different ways that our business partners can engage with the IEM product if they're interested in using this for their email inboxes. So the first is a more sort of classical data science approach, a data science engagement, which is where there would be a team of maybe a couple data scientists, maybe a couple data engineers, that would work to build the business a bespoke model for their use case. So this has the advantage of providing them with a custom model for their use case, which allows us to tackle more complex use cases because they have the data scientists there working on the data, back and forth with the subject matter experts, etc. And another advantage is that we can integrate with any email system that they might be using because of the data engineers working on the project. But the trade-off is that there's a longer engagement period, and it's also more costly because you have a whole team of people working on your project. And that's not necessary for every engagement that we have at the bank. So the other mode that we could have is more of a self-serve model. So this uses automated classification and triage of emails. It's self-serve, so it doesn't require the data scientist and the data engineer, which means that it can be done very quickly. And it's much less expensive. You don't have a whole team of people working for you. However, the trade-off is that right now our pipeline is just for Outlook. So now I'd like to talk to you about one of the business cases where we implemented IEM with a real business team at the bank to provide them value. So this is the commercial client email inbox. So who this team is, it's a bunch of email inboxes across the bank that receive emails from commercial clients as well as from frontline staff. And like I mentioned before, they can get emails about a really huge variety of topics. Can you order me more checks? All the way up to maybe the fraud example that I mentioned earlier. And when we engaged this team, the problem was that they were exceeding the SLA for lots of their emails. So they were taking a really long time to reply to people's emails. And many of the processes were manual. So they had this queue manager who was reading through all the emails. They were doing the automation, the authentication manually. Their process was hugely manual, which is a problem for scale. If all of your processes are manual and you receive more emails, it's difficult to scale out without hiring more people. So now I'd like to show you a demo from our business partners of what it looked like when we implemented the IEM solution for their team.
Before we have IQ solutions deployed, queue managers need to pick up each email on SEM to read through in order to determine if email needs to act or remove. After IQ solutions deployed, without any manual effort, all incoming emails will be tagged based on IQ model prediction on email intent to classify an incoming email in real time. As you can see on the SEM screen, IQ action, IQ deprioritize, IQ priority, IQ purge. For email predicted as no action, the solution will tag the email as IQ deprioritize. In this example, you can see in the reason 3 code, IQ pre-populate the prediction outcome as IQ deprioritize. For email predicted as no action, the solution will tag the email as IQ purge. In this scenario, you can see the reason 3 code pre-populate as IQ purge. For email classified as action, the solution will apply additional business logics to classify an action email as regular, priority, or high priority. The visibility IQ solution provided is not only at the queue level for user to identify inquiries need action quickly, but also add additional value when certain types of inquiry sensitive to urgency or client experience. When email intents identify as fraud, stop payment, or check issue related as a predefined business logic, IQ will tag the email as high priority on SCM and also pre-populate the relevant reason.
So this demo was really, I mean, it's not our production environment, but this is what the IEM solution looks like in production for the for this email team. And so we've rolled it out to all of the email inboxes that are part of this team. We're processing more than 50,000 emails a month, and it's got 100% adoption. All of the people answering emails for these email inboxes are using the IEM tool. And because of this tool, we've saved about 6 FTEs, so 6 people's worth of time. And we've liberated these people from doing things that, like queue management, to working on things that really do require a human, like answering the emails. When I introduced this problem to you, I talked about 2 areas that the business was concerned about when we started our engagement with them. The first was the SLA, so they were about 1 to 5 days, taking longer than they said they would to answer your email. And now we're meeting the SLA. They have a 24-hour SLA, and the team is able to meet their SLA with help of the IEM tool. The other problem that I discussed was that it was a manual process. And so the manual assignment of emails, before we engaged with them, 100% of the emails were being assigned by a human. Now we've got 40% of them being auto-assigned, so without a human at all, and the rest are tagged with certain keywords that help the queue manager understand what the email is about. So they don't have to read the whole email thread anymore. They can look at these tags to help them make the decision of where to route to this email. So Joel and I have given you a couple examples of the stuff that we at the Innovation Hub have been working on, and I think it's really interesting. I think that truly RBC is a great place to be a technologist. And if you're interested in becoming a technologist at RBC, we do have a few job roles that are posted. So you're more than welcome to take a look at those or come and talk to Joel or me after the talk. But on that note, we'll open it up to questions.
So right now, we do collect the business process metadata as a part of the event engine, so we can capture all of the events associated with the business process. What we described has been used on a few business processes, but that process does scale until that final step of the SME. So we're iterating on kind of what's the best way, especially for the final step, to involve the person at that point. But kind of everything until then is automated.
Thank you very much for your great presentation. I have 2 questions regarding large language model. First one is, does RBC have plan to evaluate how those models can help your developer, data scientists do their job, how that would affect your talent strategy? The second question is how RBC gonna evaluate the risks of data security or the customer data privacy by using those large language model? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the questions. So I think that you've raised 2 really good and salient points about large language models. They're good, and there's risks associated with them. And those are both things that the bank is considering. So yeah, we are looking into large language models where there's teams whose purpose is to look into that sort of stuff, to understand how could we use it at the bank and to make the employees and clients' lives easier. But you're completely bang on in that there's a real privacy issue. So that's really the focus of sort of the research that's going on at the bank right now, is how to do this. How to do it on-prem, how to do it in a safe way that won't expose clients' data to other people. I don't know.
Hello, yeah, hi. Thanks very much for the presentation. My question has really already been asked by the previous person, but I just want to clarify a little bit about what the language models. So is it going to be the kind of existing language models that are out there already that the bank is planning using, or are you planning on developing in-house models that probably would address the privacy concerns as well?
Sure, that's another great question. So I don't think that we're really committed one way or the other. The bank is really open to exploring all sorts of opportunities while keeping the risks in mind. So I'm sure if you have experience with natural language processing and these types of models, you know that you could use it out of the box, you could do some domain-specific retraining, or you could develop your own. I don't think the bank is really committed to one of these three paths over the other one. So it's still sort of, the bank is willing to do, and the technologists there are willing to do what provides business value while still keeping these privacy concerns in mind.
And just a quick follow-up question. So does the bank typically hire people who specialize in NLP for those type of tasks, or?
Yeah. There's definitely teams that the people working on them are completely NLP specialists, yeah, or deep learning specialists, or reinforcement learning specialists, or whatever the task might be.
Hi, nice talk about using large language models to expedite your RBC's prediction process. My question was similar to the earlier question asked earlier, but this time related to RBC's own internal security. So by using large language models, it has been shown that it can be compromised by using other large language models through maybe prompt injections. So do you think even if you are not using those existing available large models and you have pre-built the models from scratch, you can still use the external models that are available publicly and basically generate those similar emails that would pass RBC's check criteria and maybe security as well. So what security are in place to deal with that?
Yeah, so the audience is raising a ton of really fabulous points about the security and the privacy. And that's a really sort of natural thing to happen. As new technology becomes popular like this, there's all of the hype, so all of the cool things that it can do, but we have to keep those expectations realistic in what can it do and what risks might it raise, what sort of problems, what could happen if somebody is using this maliciously or irresponsibly or something like that. So I really love the focus that the audience is bringing to this. And I have to say, if you're passionate about data privacy and security, well, there might be a role for you at the bank.
Yeah, hi. My question is more around quality control. So while you have these systems that are queuing or managing the queuing and sending it to anyone, what if somebody writes in about something important and gets deprioritized by the system? How do you catch it?
That's a great question. And that's really something So this is something that I personally find really interesting, and that is how does data science fit into a business process? So we all can, go on Kaggle and do a data set and do data science sort of in the void. But in the enterprise, that's not how it works. You're just one tool in an entire process, in a business process. And so you have to think about these kinds of things. You have to think about what happens when my model is wrong, because it invariably will be wrong. And so that is part of risk management, which is something that I find super interesting. So when you have a process, when you have a risk, what sort of controls do you put in place to mitigate that risk, to ensure that, exactly as you say, we don't deprioritize a really important email? So that was something that we worked together with the business to design a risk-resilient process that even when really our machine learning models made an error, how can we mitigate the impact of that to the client? So I won't get into all of that right now because this is a data science talk, but one of the controls that we have in place is that a human looks at all of the emails, regardless of what queue it's in. There is a human reading the emails, so your email won't accidentally get deleted and never seen again. Like there's a human, and very intentionally in this process for exactly as you say, mitigating this risk. So great question.
Great. Yeah, this is more just around the innovation hub in general, and I think when RBC announced that they were going to build it, I think that was a commitment that they were going to build everything in-house, or a lot of things anyways. But there's also a lot of great machine learning, data science solutions out there. Where do you see the advantage of having to build this in-house in terms of like quality versus the speed that you can get from just buying something?
I'll do my best to answer it. I think it's a great question. I don't think, I can't like opine on behalf of RBC for exactly what the messaging was to that effect, but I don't think that there's a commitment to build everything in-house. I think when it comes to technology, sort of it makes me think of the slide I had about data strategy. There's always a decision about, to build or to buy. And even lots of these solutions have so many parts that they might be a mix of both. Even, it makes me think of the question about when you have a platform, do you have kind of a monolithic, one size fits all or something that does many things versus do you mix and match different capabilities? This is very much in the same vein. I'll repeat it, and it's sort of the unsatisfactory kind of architect's answer, but I think the answer is it depends, and it depends on the context, and you have to make those decisions on a case-by-case basis.
I just have a question about like when you build the tool that can help like increase the efficiency, is there like issue that the user will kind of highly depends on this tool and never checked again the whole like content of the email and just basically fully believe what is for the priority or something?
So I think that in this particular case, that's not really a problem because we're not using the tool to action any of the emails. Client experience is really important to RBC, and I think it's really important that the client, has a positive experience, and so it is even like once it's assigned to someone, even if it was assigned manually, the human is reading the email in order to be able to action it because these emails contain requests. So regardless of how it gets there, to be sent to the employee, it definitely needs the human to read it.
Can I have a follow-up on that?
Of course.
What it makes me think of more generally, I think it's a fantastic question. And it makes me think of, there's kind of a very classic paper on the topic. I don't know if it's the first time someone sort of posted this, but called the Ironies of Automation. And I think that that more general problem that you posed is inescapable. And I think, I can't speak to the email context, but I think that almost the solution is the first step is just being aware of it. And in the same spirit as like always thinking about risk and mitigating risks. Anytime there's automation, I think that risk is present and needs to be, mitigated. Thank you very much.
Thank you.